Welcome to the Nightly 5 podcast with Ben O'Shea.
How does it feel to be back in the Sky Blue colours?
It feels great. It was a bit of a wild 24 hours. Madge called me yesterday after captain's run and said there could be a chance, so I just had to wait till this morning, and I was either going to be playing a game today or coming into the camp. So it was a bit crazy, but I'm just it's obviously a huge honour, privilege to be back. In New South Wales camp, obviously I'm disappointed for Dylan how it's happened, but it's a good opportunity for me.
That's James Tedesco speaking after being rushed into the Blues camp ahead of Origin Game 1 on Wednesday. I'm joined now by Nightly Sports editor Ben McClellan. Ben, Dylan Edwards was pretty much just anointed as the Blues fullback, and it looks like you went and put the mocker on him last week.
I don't think I put the mocker on him, mate. I think yet again he had injury has wreaked havoc with a professional sports player, which is quite a common theme.
Yes.
So I don't know whether the physios need to get together and sort of figure out what's going on. Maybe they shouldn't train. They should just pick them for Origin. They should go have beers with Spud, and then they should just go and play.
And so what has he got? He's got a bit of a quad situation?
Yeah. So he pulled up a bit lame, as we like to say in the industry, on Saturday afternoon. And obviously the injury was pretty serious with the medical staff of New South Wales, ruling him out of the game on Wednesday. As we all know, they had, SOS call, which would have been pretty interesting from Madge Maguire, the coach, to James Tedesco, who he'd axed, asking him to be rushed back into the team.
Awkward.
And obviously there's issues around Nicho Hynes and his calf. He only just sort of got cleared to play last week. So it's an unbelievably interesting dynamic. We've got the axed fullback, New South Wales, an Australian skipper brought into the team. He won't captain New South Wales. That's still going to be Jake Trbojevic. So it's going to be very interesting out there on Wednesday night. James has been unbelievably humble about it. Doesn't say he's got a point to prove, just wants to do best for the team. But if he comes in, has a blinder of a game, and New South Wales win, then what do they do for game 2? Does that mean he's back in and Edwards isn't? So it's just it's just fascinating.
If they win, it'd be very hard, and he plays well. It'd be very hard to bring Edwards back, and it's heartbreaking for Edwards. He's always a bridesmaid, never a bride when it comes to Origin, despite so much success that we spoke about last week at the club level. You mentioned Spud Carroll. He's got another column coming through on the Nightly today. What's Spud got to say this week?
Well, Spud wears his heart on his sleeve.
His blue sleeve.
Pretty passionately. Yeah, his bloodied sleeve of his own blood. He's written very passionately about this age-old myth of Queenslanders having more passion than New South Wales. He says it's a bunch of 4X. And he's written about how what Michael Maguire, the New South Wales coach, has done this year, differently from other years and other New South Wales coaches, he's really brought in the old guard of New South Wales legends to connect with the team. So Spud was one of those. They went to a sort of a function last week where they showed the scenes from the very famous 1985 New South Wales series win. So that was the first series that New South Wales had won after Origin started in 1980. Obviously, Queensland dominated it very early on and then, dominated it of late. And he said it sort of brought a tear to his eye, and it really showed that, passion is not something Queensland have a monopoly on, and the Blues are just as passionate. I mean, obviously, we change our players every game, so that doesn't help. He's written quite a good column, and he's spoken about one of the debutants, the 6 debutants, or 5 now that Edwards is out, Spencer Leniu, who's obviously had a massive cloud hanging over him from the racism saga during the Vegas game earlier in the year. He's been picked as an enforcer for the Blues, and Spud has revealed what he's told Spencer about what he needs to do to dust up those Maroons.
Well, don't miss that one, unless you're a Queenslander, in which case, just give it a miss. No, you should read.
Give them hell.
You should
I
read.
think
You
he
should
just
read
said,
it
"Give
anyway.
them hell."
Read it anyway.
Yes.
And so you have someone to hate. And now let's talk AFL, and the golden child Harley Reid is in hot water after a pretty ugly tackle on the weekend.
Yeah. So Harley was being tagged pretty heavily by St Kilda. He sort of took out his frustrations with what they call a sling tackle, where he basically slung Darcy Wilson to the ground, and Darcy, sort of collided with the earth at great speed. So he got handed a 2-match ban. We've just learnt today that West Coast plan on challenging the ban. They don't, they realise they won't have grounds to overturn the ban itself, but they are asking for the ban to be downgraded. So they want it downgraded to 1 match. I mean, either way, it means Harley Reid's ineligible for the Rising Star Award, which is the Rookie of the Year. This came after Sam Darcy, who was he was challenging for this award at this stage of the season, who plays for the Bulldogs. He's accepted a 2-match ban for a pretty ugly bump on Collingwood's Brayden Maynard. So we've had Georgie Parker writing in the Nightly today about whether the league needs to look at, tweaking the eligibility for these awards, so that if you are suspended, you're not automatically wiped out, which is the standing rule for the Rising Star and the Brownlow. There's obviously been a lot of conjecture about that, particularly around the Brownlow. But yeah, she's written quite a good piece saying, given that a lot of things that didn't used to get cited now do, and players are really doing their best to avoid ugly hits on their opponents, even though the series of bans we've had lately may not indicate that maybe the league should look at tweaking the rules. So if maybe if you're only suspended for 1 or 2 games as opposed to like 6 or 7 for some really ugly hit, then you might still be eligible to win one of these awards.
Yeah, I think it's not a bad argument at all. And I think, like you're missing a couple of games, that's punishment as well. And if you still get enough points that you win it, maybe you deserve it. With the caveat being that if you do something particularly egregious, then there's no coming back from that. Certainly food for thought. Nightly sports editor Ben McClellan, thanks as always for joining us on the show.